Hey everybody, welcome to the video. It's Sunday, September 5th, and we're breaking down this 10-game day set that we have over on DraftKings today. And I do apologize for not posting yesterday, but sometimes we all get a little bit tired. But we are back. We have a good pitching slate here. We have some good stacks to talk about, so it should be a fun Sunday afternoon of baseball. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. We have NFL content coming out very soon, so there's a lot to be excited about. Last but not least, this video is sponsored by Prize Picks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified. Just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props that they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, for your new signee over on Prize Picks, you can use code CPEN to get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you tell them I sent you. But I think that'll be it for the plugs for the most part, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, we'll start with the pitchers and move on to the bats. And I think I have the four most expensive pitchers listed here, but it is what it is. I think they're by far the best pitching options. I don't really have many plans to roster any other pitchers, so that's what we're going to have to deal with today, but we can make it work for sure. Robbie Ray up top, $10,100, gets a pretty tough matchup versus Oakland. They're a team that definitely has some guys that have some pop versus lefties, and Robbie Ray will struggle a little bit with the power, giving up over a 160 ISO in the season, close to 1.5 homers allowed per 9, and close to a 35% hard contact rate. But that comes with a lot of strikeouts, and the rest of his numbers are pretty solid. He fixed the walks from what we've seen in seasons past, only a 6% walk rate, close to a 32% K rate. Good ERA, good xFIP, good SIERA, and even though the matchup's not great, the same can be said for the Oakland A's, and I think Robbie Ray's going to be just fine here. A 3.7 implied team total against him. In a pretty heavy favorite, the Blue Jays offense does find themselves in a pretty good spot versus lefty Cole Irvin today. Then dropped in a Corbin Burns, $9,700. My preferred way to go today is to be able to fit in Robbie Ray and Corbin Burns together. Maybe it might not be the most viable option. You could easily play anybody else. I played the two best projection pitchers slate today, but I had no problem mixing and matching any of these four. But only a 3.1 implied team total against them. Pretty heavy favorite, draws a pretty good matchup here versus St. Louis Cardinals. Not a team that will really strike out too much, but they don't have too much power versus right-handed pitching, somewhere in the 130s in their ISO this season. And he's coming off a fantastic game versus a pretty tough matchup in the San Francisco Giants, at over 30 fantasy points in that outing. And I believe the last time he faced the Cardinals, I think he took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, if I'm remembering correctly. But if we're looking at his numbers on the season, some of the absolute best in the entire league. A really good ERA, elite xFIP, elite SIERA, close to a 35% K. It doesn't really walk too many guys, only giving up a .07 ISO in the season, a 25% hard contact rate, and only .3 homers allowed per 9 innings. So Corbin Burns, definitely think he's one of the overall, if not the best overall pitching option on today's slate. $9,700 I think is a really good price point. Then Dylan Cease, $9,400 up against the Kansas City Royals, who kind of similar to the Cardinals, where they don't really strike out too much versus righties, but they don't have much power whatsoever either. Yes, you kind of got to get around a guy like Salvador Perez, who just hit his 40th home run of the season last night, but still only a 4 implied team total against him. Decently heavy favorite. The White Sox offense is obviously loaded, so typically the pitcher for the White Sox is usually going to be the favorite. And Cease has been good this year in the strikeout department, over a 30% K rate. He does walk some guys. His xFIP is close to 4, his SIERA is above 3.5, but he doesn't give up too much power. He gets a lot of fly balls though, 45% fly ball rate, but not too concerned here versus the Royals. I think he's a good tournament pivot off of a guy like Corbin Burns, who's definitely going to have a lot more ownership. So if you just want to slide right over to Dylan Cease, who I think has similar upside now, is he more likely to outscore Corbin Burns on a per game basis? No, not really, but the upside is there for it. And if Corbin Burns happens to implode at chalk, we've seen a couple games where Burns hasn't been exactly sharp this season. I mean, Dylan Cease is definitely there for a leverage spot. Then Castillo, $8,100. Hate the park that he's pitching in Cincinnati, but he's done it many times this season. Gets a good matchup versus Detroit in terms of strikeouts. They definitely have some guys that can hit for some pop this year. They're not the pushover matchup that they used to be, especially earlier in the season. But still only a 3.4 implied team total here. Pretty heavy favorite. Do like the Reds offense quite a bit today. And Luis Castillo has been very sharp ever since he kind of was not having a good start to the season. But ever since then, he's kind of righted the ship. And while his numbers don't look overly exciting, he's still a guy that can get some pretty solid fantasy outings. A really good ground ball rate at 55%, only 25% fly ball rate, about a homer allowed per 9, and a 26.5% hard contact rate allowed. And the Tigers are striking out around 26% of the time versus right-handed pitching this season. So despite the absolute terrible park that he's pitching in Great American Small Park, I think he's going to be just fine at $8,100. I think he looks good on a point per dollar basis. But as far as pitching goes, I think that'll be pretty much it. So we'll move right over to today's stacks. And the first team we're going to talk about, either love him or hate him, is the New York Yankees in the Bronx versus the lefty Keegan Aiken. And I pretty much like all the righties here. The lefties are playable in tournaments because at some point they're going to see a righty anyway. And the Orioles bullpen is obviously not very good. We have a team total close to 6 here. But there's a lot of guys that can hit lefties for power very well in this lineup. DJ LeMahieu, not a big power guy, but he does hit for contact. Hits at the top of the order. Not overly expensive. Gallo, More of a tournament guy there. The lefty and lefty spot. Aaron Judge murders left-handed pitching. Super expensive though, but he's the top option. One of the best overall plays on the slate today if you have the money for him. Stanton in a similar boat there. Rizzo, similar boat to Joey Gallo. Luke Voigt, like his pop versus lefties, only $4,000. Just hits a little bit lower in the order. Then guys like Torres, Urshela, and Gary Sanchez are kind of lineup fillers, but we have a very righty-heavy projected lineup here. Only 2 lefties to deal with, so these guys do grade out very, very well versus Keegan Aiken tonight. Moving on over to Great American Small Park, we have the Cincinnati Reds at home versus Casey Mize, who is not a terrible pitcher, but his splits versus lefties are very, very concerning. Not concerning for our bats, just concerning for himself. But if you guys want to see the difference of what I'm talking about, like versus righties this season, he's actually been okay. ERA below 3, xFIP in the low 4s. Not a big strikeout guy, but only allowing a 113 ISO, 51% ground ball rate, and only a 25% hard contact rate. But if we look at his numbers versus lefties, they definitely fall off a cliff a little bit. ERA close to 5. The xFIP not too far behind, only 19% K rate, but a 275 ISO allowed, a 48% hard contact rate, which is terrible, and close to 2.5 homers allowed per 9. And we have quite a few lefties in this lineup. Unfortunately, no Jesse Winker. He'd be one of the top options on the entire slate, but guys like Tyler Naquin. Like, if you're not playing Tyler Naquin at $3,000 and letting already matchup versus Casey Mize in a very hitter-friendly park, I'm not sure what you're doing. You have a 5.3 implied team total here. If you're playing cash games, please play Tyler Naquin tomorrow. He's going to be super high owned, but you're going to want him in your lineups. Joey Votto, it feels like he homers each and every single day. Mike Moustakas, he has power versus righties. Then Tucker Barnhart in the bottom of the order. And then also Max Schrock. I don't know why his handedness is not popping up there, but he is a lefty. So at $2,600, you could obviously play him too. The righties are playable in tournaments like Jonathan India and Nick Castellanos and Kyle Farmer, but I do like the lefties a lot versus Casey Mize. Going back to the AL East here, the Tampa Bay Rays at home in the Trop, which is not a great place to hit, but that doesn't stop them from hitting pretty well recently. We saw yesterday, I think like 6 of the 9 starters in the lineup hit homers. That might have went even higher. I was a little bit out of it on Saturday night doing some other things. But last time I looked, the Rays were absolutely raking versus the Twins, and they did pretty well the day before that on Friday night. I would not be surprised if it happens again here versus Griffin Jax, a guy that has a lot of power so far this season. Guys like Brandon Lau and Austin Meadows are the preferred options, but you can feel free to use anybody in this lineup. Lefties and righties all make sense to me. Again, Meadows and Lau, my preferred plays, but guys like Randy Arena, Nelson Cruz, Wander Franco, and the others cannot be ignored. The next stack I want to talk about, not one I usually mention too often, but it's the New York Mets here versus Josiah Gray, who has really struggled in the power department this season. Not a guy I typically pick on too much, but the power he's given up this season is not to be ignored. I know it's a smaller sample size this year, around 40 innings pitched, but overall he's giving up a 286 ISO and close to 3 homers allowed per 9 versus lefties, about 2.76 homers allowed per 9 and a 250 ISO. And then versus righties, we're giving up a 322 ISO with a 33% hard contact rate and 3 homers allowed per 9. So I don't think he's a terrible pitcher. He is definitely giving up quite a bit of power here with the Mets on the road, so you get this guaranteed thing at bats. And I think the entire lineup is in play, and they're not overly expensive. So if you're going like double spin up at pitcher today, you're rostering an expensive stack like the New York Yankees, you might have to find some value here. Well, guys like VR are only $4,000 leading up. He's got some pop on his bat, close to a 200 ISO in the season. Michael Conforto has been struggling this year, batting cleanup, only $3,200. Kevin Pillar is below 3K. Like, this isn't a super expensive lineup. Even Pete Alonso, ton of power in his bat, close to 300 ISO in the season. He's only $4,500. So I think overall this is a pretty decent team with their price point. I definitely think we can go cheap home run hunting here versus Josiah Gray, who's really struggled with it so far this season. And the last team I want to talk about is the Toronto Blue Jays here at home versus Cole Irvin, who's not the worst pitcher out there, but this is definitely a really tough matchup versus a Blue Jays offense who can smash lefties or righties. Team total with a 5 here, which was a little bit higher, but George Springer, Simeon, Vlad, Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez, all elite plays here. Even the bottom of the order is playable, as this is a full-on right-handed lineup, and they're all going to profile pretty well here versus a lefty. Not that they're my favorite stack today, especially at these price points, but they're viable if you do have the money to spend up at certain positions today. I do want to mention that the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago White Sox, and the Milwaukee Brewers also look good as well, but for the sake of time, I'm going to leave them just as suggestions. But if you want to use them as mini stacks or one-offs, I have no issue with that whatsoever. They do draw some pretty decent matchups themselves. But with that being said, I think that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. We have football coming on soon, very, very soon. So there's definitely a lot to be excited about, and I'll be covering 3 sports, baseball, NASCAR, and football. So now is one of the best times to sign up. Plus, we're close to the beginning of the month, so you get your best bang for your buck. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by PrizePicks. Just you versus the projections. And as of right now, if you do sign you over there, you can use the link down below in the description, or head to PrizePicks.com and use code CPEN to get a free money bonus up to $100 when you tell them I sent you. I think that'll be pretty much it. I will stop rambling. I'll see you guys on Monday for the next video, unless you're going to stick around for the NASCAR live stream this weekend, which in that case, I will see you this afternoon to come in, hang out, and answer some questions, and just have a good overall time. Also, best of luck to everyone doing their fantasy football drafts this weekend. I have mine on Monday, but I'm sure a lot of you drafting today, which in that case, I wish you the best of luck. Get out of here. I'll see you guys next time.